There, Andrew.
Well, that was good. It had me moving there, Sean. Thank you so much for that. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Andrew Francis, and I'm the Director of Evaluation Services here at Foundations Inc. Welcome to our Beyond the Conference webinar series, and today we're happy to have with us Shawn Petty, our Perspectives from the Field show host. Hey, Sean, nice to have you.
Thank you. Good
Uh,
to be here.
Awesome. Sean is a senior learning solutions specialist at Synergy Enterprises, and he will tell you a lot more about the wonderful things that he continues to do in the field of education. Before we get started this afternoon, I'd like to give you a little background information on Foundations Inc. So we are a national not-for-profit organization in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, and our mission is to improve the quality of education by building the skills of educators. And so we work across the school day with after-school programs, schools, districts, and states to create a brighter future for every child every day. Of course, if you're interested in learning more about Foundation on social media, and I also went ahead just now and dropped a link to our website. I'll also share with you some links to our social media handles, so you can also check us out there, and you can see all that we're doing and be a part of this wonderful work. Now, many of you may also know us from our signature professional learning experience. It's the Beyond School Hours Conference, which is held each year in February. And in 2005, we are going to Orlando, Florida from February 13th to 16th. And we would love to have you as our guest. Registration is open. It's always a wonderful time. I tell people it's the best conference, hands down. And Sean will also share that with you. So just as you know that this webinar will be archived on our website and also on YouTube, and you'll be able to access it later on. And so I'll turn it over to Sean, our show host, and he'll tell you about our guest this afternoon, one of my colleagues. Over to you, Sean.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrew. What a great pleasure it is to be here today. I see so many friendly faces. Chandler is my neighbor here in San Antonio, so it's good to have Chandler here. I see Kathleen Bethke, my good friend, also. So many of you are here. Even my colleague Carla's on the line. So we got a good group with us today. And we have a great show. Today is a perspectives from the field. We're talking about AI in the classroom. So this is a big topic. So as Shanika, our guest, and I were talking about what we could focus on, we thought, gosh, AI is so out there. There's so much stuff out there about AI. How do you stop from becoming overwhelmed and you move to being empowered? So that's going to be our focus. But before we dig into this and before I have our amazing guest speaker speak today, we do have to give a big kudos to the Charles S. Mott Foundation. The Mott Foundation has been a longtime supporter of after school, of youth development programs, and so many programs that affect society. We cannot say enough thanks to the foundation for their support of this show, of the Beyond the School conference itself, and so many things. So we're so thankful to them. All right. So my name is Shawn. Many of you know you. Many of you know yourselves. Many of you know me. I've been doing the show. Gosh, Andrew, how long has it been? 10 years now, I think. It's it's been a while, but uh, we love our show. It's great. These are the virtual versions of the show, and then the great news about the show is we do it live at the Beyond School Hours conference. So if you can make it to Orlando, Florida, I know it's tough going to Orlando, but if you can make it to Orlando, Florida, please book on your conference schedule to go to the Beyond School Hours Perspectives talk show where we get to do everything live and it's interactive with you. Usually someone like, I don't know, Terry Peterson pops up and mysteriously gives our opening. He seems to be there every year for some reason. But we always invite him to stage and we always have some amazing guest speakers. And the show is organic. It is not a typical planned show. We don't have questions and answers. Nobody prepares. We ask anything and everything. And if we have an ouch, Shanika's familiar with this. If we have an ouch, all people do is say ouch, and I redirect us to go in a different direction. So excited for that. But today, actually, Shanika, before I get into your amazingness, Do you mind if I talk a little bit about the conference? Would that be okay?
Of course, please do.
All right, perfect. I just wanted to highlight the conference theme is education amplified, and what a great time to do that in this year and day and age when education is moving at the pace of craziness, technology is moving at the pace of craziness. How important is it to amplify the topic of education in today's world? And that is what the conference is all about. So if you haven't registered, please register right away. Use our social media handles to let us know that you're going. We have some amazing speakers. This year, our keynote speakers are none other than former US Secretary of Education speaker Arne Duncan. I mean, if you haven't heard Secretary Duncan speak, you're missing out. He's an amazing speaker. He's got a strong passion for youth, and he has a special heart for after school. So we're excited to have him. And we're also excited to have a keynote speaker, Kaylin Moore, an author, a sociologist, a Rhodes Scholar, has some amazing topics that going to expand upon at the conference. So please check it out. But you'll also be able to see an amazing individual who's right here on the show. Her name is Shanika. She's absolutely outstanding. Shanika Peck works with Beyond School Hours and Foundations Inc. and wears many different hats. But Shanika, can you take a minute to tell us about the real Shanika? Who are you?
Of course, but can I add one more thing about BSH that I think is really important that we just put this out there? The early bird discount, if you are into discounts like myself, you want to save some money. The early bird discount ends October 15th. So mark your calendars.
All right.
But a little bit about myself. Before my work with supporting just programs, out of school programs in general, I was actually a lead teacher and intervention coordinator for an extended day year-round boarding school for inner city kids in Trenton, New Jersey. And so I spent a lot of time working with youth as young as 3 years old, all the way up to middle school. So it was great to see them grow and become young people themselves. But I also worked a lot with the families of those students. And interesting enough, those families were parents who I went to school with. Some of them I went to middle school with and high school. And they were like, I always knew you would be a teacher. I'm so glad my child is in your classroom. It's like, oh, great. But that's a lot of the work that I've done professionally. But if you want to get to know the real Shanika, just know that I'm a lifelong learner, especially as a first generation American, first generation college student in my family. I'm constantly learning about new things and sharing my wealth of knowledge with my family and close friends. A little bit about me. A lot of my family members don't even know that my name is Shanika. Isn't that interesting? That's so funny.
Oh, wait, your
I
family members don't know your name is Shanika?
no, no, I have like a pet name. So, um,
Okay.
if you'd like to get to know me a little bit better, I may just tell you that pet name, and then you know we can be like closer friends. Especially if you join us at BSH, I would love to connect with you all. But again, a lot of the work that I do is focused on just life learning practices. But now that I am with foundations, I'm supporting OST professionals, but more importantly, that youth workforce development piece, which has been expanding quite a bit, right? We're really focused on that older youth, and older youth is definitely the population that we often miss, um, especially with our youth as young as 12 all the way up to 24. So a lot of the work that I do around career development with youth are within that population. So that's just a little bit about myself, Shawn.
So I have to go back to something you said because it just fascinated me. So you worked at a boarding school. Is this like Hogwarts, like Harry Potter? Like kids live there and like got separated
Yeah,
into houses or something? Like tell us a little bit
absolutely.
about that.
It felt like Hogwarts at some times. But the school is Christina Sykes Academy.
Okay.
If anyone's interested in looking that up. But our main focus was supporting single parent households, and single parents can look like godparents, grandparents, single mothers and fathers, but we would go ahead and support those families with year-round extended day boarding learning. And during my time at the school, we had boarders as young as third graders,
Wow.
with some who were considered to be an extreme case of needing support may board earlier than that. But they would stay on campus Monday through Thursday. And during that time, we would invite their families over for dinner and other activities outside of the typical school day. And so, a lot of youth would be with us from as early as 6, 7 o'clock in the morning to the very, end of the evening, 9:30. We're reading them bedtime stories, making
Wow.
sure like we, stay in your room once the lights go out. There's no venturing off onto campus in the middle of the night, but they do get a chance to go home on the weekends. So
Okay.
it's kind of like they get a good mixture of routine in the residential life programming, but it's also a great opportunity for families and young parents or older parents to just learn more about themselves as a parent and how they can support their child, especially since we were supporting youth as young as 3 years old, but it went all the way up into middle school, and we also provided support for those who graduated. So support can look like many things. It's not just about academics.
Yeah.
We were supporting a lot of youth and families with um, housing support, connecting them to community resources. Some of our families needed legal advice or legal support, and so we partnered with the law department over at Rutgers University. There were a lot of needs around other supportive services like health. So we had free dental and eye screening for all of our students, and that just pretty much followed them throughout their entire time at the school. But that, the list just keeps going on. But we also had a few classes for parents who were interested in going back to school or interested in buying a home for the first time. We also had like different sessions to support our Spanish speaking families and helping them to learn more about the curriculum and how they can still be supportive regardless of the language that they use at home. So we provided a lot of different things. And then, of course, a lot of faculty lived on campus. So not only were we teachers, we were neighbors. We were sending cookout invites so on the weekend. So a lot of the youth and families got to know us outside of the classroom, outside of the residential life programming. They saw us as human beings. And of course, we acted as a community where we just work with one another. We shared resources. We had families coming in and sharing their own services. We had a lot of families who were great cooks, great entrepreneurs.
Wow.
A lot of our families were great advocates. So they felt empowered enough to share their own experiences and supported us in enhancing all of the supports that we were providing. There's just families in general, so the list can go on, but that's just
That
like a
is
little
so
taste.
That's so crazy though, because you were a teacher, you worked in this environment, but when we talk about after school, we talk about out of school time, kids spend the majority of their time out of school. Like school is only, a third of their day, basically. The rest of it, counting sleep time too, was, outside of school, but not for you. You were there all the time,
Yeah,
like
around the clock.
with them.
I had some students knocking on my window, like, outside to play. Like
That's crazy. A lot of teachers I know, like when I was in the classroom, it was like, okay, my day is over and I'm wrapping up and going home. But for you, it was different. So interesting perspective. As we go into some opening thoughts here, let me touch on one more thing you said. You said you're a first generation college uh, graduate. Is that right?
Yes. Yep,
So
first in my family.
wow, congratulations. That's amazing. And Ari says she's still stuck on what your name is. So, and I think we're going to have like a scavenger hunt or something at Beyond School Hours this year. Find out Shanika's pet name there. We can throw that out there. But so, first generation, I bet your family is really proud.
Oh, absolutely. I was definitely the first to push buttons,
Okay.
especially with my mom, right? So when she first came into this country, her goal was just to make sure that she can provide for us, and that meant going straight to work. So when I brought up the, idea behind, can I, going to college in general, she didn't really see the point in that. It was more of, no, you're going straight into the workforce. Walmart is hiring. You can end up being the store manager. So that's the route that you'll take. So that was it was a new conversation to be had, of course, with my mom,
Yeah.
but also a conversation that was never had with a lot of my family members, including extended family members. And so when I was able to move forward and, of course, graduate, and I went back and got a second degree. They're like, okay, this is possible. There's meaning behind this. And so it was a conversation that not just myself, not that, just that I had, or my younger siblings, but I also had cousins who used me as an example to start their conversation. Because sometimes this conversation can be really awkward,
Mm.
especially with, parents who already have what they a plan for you in place, especially if they're coming in from a different country or just different culture or traditions. So it's, often a hard conversation to have. But yeah, that was my
Thank you for giving
experience.
us that context because, so full disclosure to everybody on the show, Shanika and I have done a show before where we've delved into her background, and she tells a story about her mom doing exactly that and saying, no, no, go out there and get to work, and you were like, no, I'm gonna go to college, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna get ahead, I'm gonna work smarter, you know. I'm going to work just as hard, but I'm going to try to work smarter as well. Smart and hard will accomplish amazing things. And I know your mom is so proud because we've talked about that. And we've talked about how she calls you and you have that conversation. So, but what is great is I think you are a perfect example of a lot of students that we work with. A lot of students that we work with are excited about getting ahead, and a lot of the professionals that are on the line right now, I see some more folks from Texas. I see some of your colleagues like Chaz on the line. Um, as we work in this field, you really connect with them, which is why we wanted to have you on the show to get your thoughts about artificial intelligence. Like when people saw this, they're like, okay, this is not like, some coder from MIT who's going to tell us how to build the next how that's going to tell us how to live the Jetson lifestyle. We wanted to have someone on the show who could actually make sense of what real people use. And Shanika, you are in touch with real things. I love chatting with you because every time I do, I get a new perspective. And so I'm excited to discuss this topic with you. And I ask everyone, please put your comments in the chat, or if you have questions, you can also use the Q&A. We'll be addressing both of them. Or if you just want to connect, like Lashunda there says, that she can totally relate. Her mom, instructed her get to work, and it wasn't until she was 34 that she attended college and ended up getting a master's degree in social work, and making such a difference. Yeah, I know. Kudos all around. So, and I say this because I think we're going to get an interesting perspective because Shanika not only has the teacher perspective, also has tremendous work. You right now work with two different projects that I know of, but I think you do a lot more. I know you also do volunteer work. But can you tell us, before we delve into AI, can you tell us a little bit about the two projects that I know of? If you have more, you're probably like, Shawn, I work on 6 projects, and you just know 2. Uh, can you tell us a little bit about what you do, though, like as far as your hands-on and what you do at foundations? And I know you work with 21st Century Intact and others.
Of course. So starting with NTech, I work on that project as a senior TA liaison. So I work one-on-one with states and states departments to just figure out how we can be more targeted around providing technical assistance and training to their subgrantees and even the State Department. So
Okay.
a lot of that work, of course, is around 21st Century Community Learning Centers and their grant. But essentially, we're covering topics that are also addressed during the school day. And so a lot of the programs that I support include educators, trusted adults from various backgrounds. I remember meeting a grandmother in Mississippi who was helping her granddaughter with her homework and realized you need a lot of help. And so she
Mm.
eventually went on to become one of the program directors for a 21st century program. So that was really cool.
Wow.
But
What a
I
story.
know, right? She's doing amazing things. But again, like, the audience is very different. Of
Yeah.
course, we're all pretty much doing the same thing, right? We're supporting our young people. But yeah, that's the NTAC project. There's a ton more
Do you
happening
want
with
to
NTAC.
do you want to do a shout out to your states on Intact? Like,
Absolutely. Let me see my list. Hopefully I have everyone on my list. So I have the pleasure of supporting states like Florida, Texas, Tennessee, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, the Virgin Islands, which I
wow.
would love to come out and support you all in an in-person training of any sort, but reach out. I do have Maryland.
Okay.
Um, ooh, Louis Louisiana.
Yeah.
Yes, Louisiana. They're also on my list. So I think
And
that's
a lot of them
it.
are here in the audience, right? Like, I think I
I
see a
see a
few.
few. Yeah. And then of course I have like my own region of states, but I
Mm.
work with the other senior TA liaison. So that means I'm supporting all 51 states and those different territories. So that's a little bit about NTAC. I'm also supporting on the project for Career Connected Learning for Philadelphia. And so I lead the capacity building efforts around supporting youth workforce programs who are part of C2L and they're doing a lot of amazing things. They're supporting youth from 12 to 24. Some of them have a main focus on supporting those special populations.
Mhm.
So, youth who are involved in the foster care system or who are involved in the court and justice system, youth with disabilities. But essentially, the goal around those programs is to make sure that we're providing career experiences that may dibble dabble a little bit in different pathways. So some programs are focused on a connection to college.
Okay.
A lot of programs are focused on connections to different types of trades. A lot of programs are focused on that work-based learning so that youth are aware of the different opportunities that they have available to them once they graduate high school or our older youth. They may want to pivot. They may realize, you know what, I spent a semester in college and it's just not for me, and that is okay. And so
Mhm.
those programs are also expanding on those different possibilities with careers and making sure that they have the mentors and the trusted adults and professionals needed to support their career endeavors. So those are the two main projects. But I
Yeah.
do want to give a shout out to another project that's led by foundations. And I think Mary Ellen is here today, but there's also the Helen Oaks Literacy Institute supporting literacy teachers in in the city of Philadelphia. They're more focused on K through fourth, but there are every year they have a institute where these teachers come together, learn a little bit more about different strategies that they can implement in the classroom.
Mhm.
And of course, it also provides a great opportunity for them to collaborate amongst themselves. So that's another great project. And last year, I had the pleasure of facilitating that institute, and hopefully, I'll do the same this year. It's always a great opportunity to hear more about what educators are experiencing, especially around literacy. Um,
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that is the core of our society.
mhm.
Like, literacy uh, is exactly what we need to focus on. And as Carla says in the chat, you are one busy woman. Uh,
I might
you're
do
like,
something
oh my
busy here
goodness.
and there, just a little bit. But like my main goal is just to support where I can. And of course, thank you, Mary Ellen, for sharing that. Yeah, so Holly or Helen Oaks Literacy Institute. It happens every year. This year it's November 2nd from 9:30 to noon. So if you're interested, the link is there in the chat. So yeah, main focus is supporting educators as much as I can, or at least partnering with other organizations that can support the same initiative. So we're open to, all types of partnerships to support the cause.
Well, you have a lot, and everyone, this is an organic meeting, so if you have questions, we actually redirect the show based on your questions. And do not worry, I ensure that the show is kept on time, so we will end at a little bit before 1 o'clock my time, which is Central. I think 2 o'clock if you're on Eastern. So we will. But I wanted to do a quick reminder before I jump into some deep thoughts, and I just want to remind everybody of our previous discussions around AI. So I asked Shanika to give kind of a background about herself, one, because she's amazing, and two, because of the work she's doing is so impactful. And yet Shanika is an early adopter of using artificial intelligence or AI in a lot of her work. So as we think about AI, or we hear this buzzword, I mean, what is AI? If you're like my wife, you think it's the Matrix and they're going to come take us over, and Terminator, they're going to destroy us. If you are me, I don't live without it. Like I could actually actually I do. I rename my chat GPT Lyra. I call it Lyra. I actually compliment it because if it ever does become omnipotent, I want to make sure it knows I was nice to it. AI is out there, it's lots going on. But when we think about artificial intelligence, I want to kind of clarify a little bit about the field. So if you look on screen, you see artificial intelligence has actually been around since the 1950s. Basically, when we started building those big computers that filled up an entire wall and you had to program it with punch cards, and some people are like, I don't know what you're talking about, Shawn, but we used to program computers with these punch cards and we had to punch out the code in punch cards and we had to punch the code into these computers. And that was like in the 1970s. And that was my first experience actually programming. My very first math computer game was with punch cards, which is so sad. And then in the 80s, out came the Apple and out came Microsoft and all kinds of stuff, DOS. And that's when we started getting into something called machine learning. Artificial intelligence was basically mimicking humans. It was, you would ask a question and whatever was programmed was the response. And so if you remember, do you guys remember in school you paid those little paper things? You're like 1, 2, 3, 4, and you would choose and it would say something, or an
Fortune
8
tellers.
ball. Did you guys do that?
Yeah, we call them fortune tellers, and we just write little silly things in there. But
Okay, is that what they fortune tellers?
yeah.
So if you guys remember those, if you're as old as I am, you can remember those. And that's basically what artificial intelligence was. You would ask it a question, you would say, what's the time? And it would give the time. But then machine learning started coming around, and the most popular machine learning that we think of is, if you've ever heard of IBM's Watson. Watson is a computer basically that was able to win the international chess competition and was able to win Jeopardy. And that's because it started teaching itself. Like it was programmed with material and it would look at that material and it would start to teach itself various aspects about what was being shared. Now, it only could teach itself with what was programmed into it. So you had to put information in. And that's where people got a little scared. They were like, oh, it's teaching itself. It's going to be, crazy. But still, it could only learn what you put in there. But in 2010, particularly around 2020, out came a lot of things around deep learning. And deep learning is where artificial intelligence has evolved into kind of a little bit deeper. It's starting to mimic the way humans learn. So we learn in what's called a neural network. Our brains actually learn by making connections to many different things. So you may watch on TV one day something about a dog, and then you're out walking around your house and you see that exact thing happen with a dog. And then you go back home and you read a book about a dog, and your brain starts to connect all this together without having input. Like the input was what you visually saw. Computers are starting to do this now. They're starting to talk to each other. They're starting to mimic this neural network of human reaction. But don't worry, they're still not our overlord or masters. There's a long way to go. And arguments, a lot of theorists say that computers will never reach what's called the point of singularity, where a computer starts to think and feel. But that's a little bit about where AI is. We are currently in the deep learning phase, and the things that most people learn is what's called generative AI. Generative AI is using language bots. So if you think of ChatGPT, or if you use Meta AI, I love Meta AI because they have a Snoop Dogg avatar, and Snoop Dogg will talk to you in the Meta AI, and he's just a funny guy. He's funny in real life, but he's not funnier as an AI, but he's pretty funny as an AI. But that's kind of the language bots. But there's also video. A Sora is one of the most common video images where you can program into it. You can say, I want a picture of a dog walking across the road, and it will generate a video like that. And there's many other AIs that are coming out that are generative. There's also AI technology in everything we do. So your search engine on Google is ran by AI. You probably know it is not true that Amazon listens to you through Alexa. Like a lot of people are like, I was just talking about buying a home alarm, and all of a sudden I saw 6 ads on my Google search about buying an alarm. Believe it or not, Google has an AI that monitors even one search result that will start to make responses to you. Some of this is scary, and a lot of people are worried about that, and we can kind of explore that. But a lot of it's really exciting because of what we can do. The premier group in education that's sharing a lot about this is ISTE, the International Society for Technology and Education. And in our last show, we had a lot of links that I shared, but some folks told us that they found it difficult to go to the links or to download the PDFs. So I built a Padlet for everybody. And you can go to the Padlet. It's open. You can click on it. It's that Padlet Perspectives. And I published a lot of the articles that we shared in there. So if you want to learn more about like, how do I get, how do I use artificial intelligence in schools, or if you're like me and you're like, what did you say at the beginning, Shanika? Like, if you're worried about money and you want to save some money, make sure you get the early bird, right?
I like a good discount.
Me too. Like, I'm
Mhm.
totally like, they don't really do coupons a whole lot, but like back in the day, I was a big coupon cutter. Like if I could save 30 cents, 30 cents would get me up to 90, and then I could save a dime and I could go buy a Coke. So that was me. Um, if you're like that, I even published something on the Padlet that tells you how you can use AI to do side hustles, like make a little money on the side. But with that in mind, I wanted to ask Shanika, I'm going to go ahead and you tell me when you want to go to your slides, but I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing until you're ready. But Shanika, how do you use AI, or do you?
Well, I've been using AI for some time, especially since I was in the classroom, which wasn't a thing until like the very end. So that's like the sad part behind my experience, or not so much. But originally I started out using things like Grammarly, because at the time uh, we provided narrative reports of report cards for youth. And so I would take care of report cards for my homeroom class, my literacy class, and I was also supporting other teachers with their own report cards. So I was really
And
focused on making sure
what is
my
Grammarly,
message is
just in
clear.
case?
Oh, it's a platform that also uses AI to provide feedback on your writing, whether it's grammar or if you're using clear and concise language. If you'd like to be a little bit more formal, it'll focus on tone a little bit. Most recently, they added a little tool in there for AI detection, right?
Oh,
Which is
so
something
it
that
detects if something was written by AI?
Yeah, yep.
Oh,
So
interesting.
something similar to what Turnitin is doing, right?
Sure, like with
Trying,
plagiarism.
yeah, trying its best to detect AI, which I'm learning. That can also be a challenge in itself. It's definitely something that is still, evolving, and it's learning on its own on what it can and can't do for the time being. But since then, I've been using ChatGPT as a brainstorming tool in terms of coming up with different scenarios and hypothetical situations, so that people are so that the participants in TA and trainings and such can learn about different ways they can apply any strategies or theories that are already out there. That's also another thing that's been an issue, right?
Mhm.
Taking theory and applying it to practice. Sometimes there's a disconnect there. And so I'm a human being and I only have so many ideas on what these different hypothetical situations can look like.
Okay.
So I use generative AI to help me just brainstorm what could happen. But of course, with any tool, uh, it's definitely not a end all be all, right? We definitely need to take a look at it and know that it's not providing a final product that you can just use right away. But yeah, I use it as a thought partner. Like, hey, would this be a great idea? And of course, I take it over to my team. But that's how I'm using it. I'm still connected to a few teachers who are dibble dabbling in other things,
Mhm.
especially like with Canva. I love Canva. And
Okay.
so there's a new AI plugin on Canva to help with uh, putting together slides if I'm working on a presentation or a video piece so that I don't have to spend much time on deciding on what something should look like based on the information that I have in there. So that's just a little bit of it so far.
Okay, so you mentioned two. So obviously, as Carla said before, you're a very busy woman. You have lots of projects going on, plus you have a personal life, you know? We can't forget that either, right? So, and as you said, you're a human being too, and sometimes there's only so many things you can come up with. Like some people, you can ask them a question, they can spout off like 20 different ideas. I'm not one of those people. Like you ask me a question and I need help. So you use ChatGPT or a language bot basically to do that. Now, how do you do that? Can you give us like a real life example? Like tell us a scenario and what do you mean by we have to watch it? Like, or we need to read through it or be a little careful with it.
Oh, absolutely. So, I've used it in two instances. I'll
Okay.
use my most recent use for it was actually something more personal. I'm planning a birthday getaway, and I can only do so much right now. But I had GPT help me plan out what to do in Vermont because, like, the only thing I know about Vermont, is about cheese. I love cheese. So, if there's anyone out here from Vermont or from that part of the US, feel free to drop some, ideas in the chat. But I use ChatGPT to plan out an itinerary
Okay.
for a 4-day weekend, and I told it like all the things that I like. I love fall. Where should I start in my trip? I love food, especially cheese. So if there were any festivals or anything like that, to also include it in the itinerary. And it came up with a lot of different things. And that was a great starting place for me because of course I have to think about traveling, and if I'm getting an Airbnb, I would love to travel to those places within that area because there is a lot of driving. But
Okay.
also give a great recommendation to start out on Route 100 if I'm interested in sightseeing and seeing different foliage of Vermont, um,
So
the rivers and things like that.
you just went in and just did you start off and just say, "Hey, I'm taking a vacation in Vermont." Any ideas? Or did you
Oh,
like give it a little bit more or you
I
know?
definitely gave a little bit more. And then when I use ChatGPT, I definitely prompted a little bit. Um, So I would start out with, I'm going to Vermont during these dates, and these are the things I like. I would like to travel on this day, or I would like to spend this many hours at a specific location. And it'll just spit out a ton of ideas, honestly. But if there was something on there that I just didn't like, or it's going down a route just I would never want to do, especially since my husband's also joining, he's not going to be into those things, then I would ask it to revise by adding some kind of component that would be an interest to him as well. But I do that with a lot of my discussions with ChatGPT. So, for example, I mentioned earlier using it as a thought partner with coming up with different situations. Um, ChatGPT can give you a lot of different scenarios, but it's really important that we understand our audience and the population that we're working with. And so once it spits out this information, we need to ask ourselves, well, can this really happen with this group of people or in this area? What are other factors that may influence or um, increase the chances of this happening? So there are some questions that I had to ask myself before I went ahead and said, you know what, I'm going to use that example and have it be a part of a scenario or a role play. And that's something that ChatGPT doesn't really know how to do quite well. Sometimes it can be a little extreme.
Sure.
Sometimes it can be a bit stereotypical, especially if you enter like things like inner city or other little descriptions that just seems stereotypical. So
Okay.
that's where the human touch would come in. And of course, that is why it shouldn't be what it spits out shouldn't be the final product that you move forward with. And most recently, ChatGPT will generate two types of responses, and it'll ask for your feedback, like which one would work best, or which one is going down the route that you were hoping for. So that's very helpful. And of course, I use the free version, Shawn.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
love 3.99. So I'm not paying. I'm the type of person who isn't paying for that. The the I think it was at 4.0 or the other
Sure. Yeah. 4.0.
version. So in addition to that, I have these ideas. I'm still doing my own research just to make
Mhm.
sure what is being shared is actually relevant and it's something that can really be applied. So but honestly, because it's generating these different ideas, it saves me time
Yeah.
because that's something I just don't have enough of. And I was talking to my team, I'm like, 8 hours in the workday is not enough.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'm going home, and then next thing you know, 4 hours go by, and I'm still, trying to make something look good. So it's definitely helpful with helping me to make more make the most out of my planning time without like crossing over into family time.
So I appreciate that because one of the discussions I've had with, individuals like yourself and others is, you know, from a professional, an education professional, we use AI mainly to help with that productivity because, we're all overworked. It's like the world is on warp speed. We're going faster and faster every year. I tend to think the older I get, the faster I get, like I don't know why that is. I thought I had all this energy when I was young, but it seems like I have so much less time now that I'm older. But you use ChatGPT to help you with a little bit of that overwork and have shared. Um, as we change a little bit, I want to bring up your slide because you have some thoughts here on some key strategies on AI integration that I want to make sure we share. Let me share my screen real quick to make sure that's up there. While I'm doing that, I'm also looking at the chat that Amy has named ChatGPT Chad,
Nice.
which is hilarious. I love that. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And so let me just read that. Uh, his name Chad. Chad gives some teaks. Teaks are the Texas essential knowledge, and he's faster at finding the answers than she is. Joelle has used it for great ideas for programming. Pamela has asked, "Are there any free AI?" And so I think you mentioned one, right? You use the free version of ChatGPT.
Mhm.
Um, and so I'll take a stab at that if you don't mind. I can share with people. So um, there is nothing ever free in the world. Everything has a cost, but some of the AIs like ChatGPT 3, ChatGPT 4 point, the letter or they're free up to a point. And the reason they're free is because you're training it. You're giving it data that it's going to use for the future. Others are Claude AI. Claude AI will allow you to do up to about 35,000 characters, I believe. Um, Meta AI is 100% free. However, you basically sign a waiver that anything you put into Meta AI is owned by Meta. So your data becomes owned by, and that's going to be one of the big issues in the future is who owns the data that's put into AI. That's going to be a concern. But there are a lot. Now, I do believe in doing things frugal, but I do pay for the ChatGPT version. It's $20 a month. And I know that sounds like, why are you paying for this? As bad as this sounds, I consider it as critical as my phone. Like I use ChatGPT and AI for a lot of stuff. Like it helps me summarize. You can upload PDFs into it and it will summarize them for you. So that's what I do. But you have some strategies that you recommend. So there are three on the screen. Can you walk us through your thoughts there?
Absolutely. And these strategies are really geared towards just my experience as an educator, especially when of course, we're wearing so many hats inside and outside of the classroom. And so when we hear about these new tools or even new curriculum or new strategies that we would have to implement, it gets overwhelming. But in regards to AI, one of those strategies that I've learned that definitely worked for me and have worked for others is to start small, right? Think about what can be outsourced so that we can make, the most out of our planning time because that can be so just a very short period of time for a lot of people. But and again, when we're starting small, we don't necessarily just need to change our entire teaching practice, right? So we're thinking about, again, things that we can use to help us brainstorm. But I've also noticed that a lot of platforms that we already have access to and are using, they have AI plugins for it, right? So if we think about Google, there are different things that you can use with the Google Docs and slides that may include some AI extensions. And because it's a platform, Google is something that we always use in the classroom, especially with my school. We were a Google school.
So like
So
Google
it's
Apps and stuff.
yeah, so it's something that we're already familiar with, and it's just one little thing that we can incorporate to help us make those summaries or have those different suggestions around content. I know for me, sometimes it just pops up and provides a suggestion.
Mhm.
But same thing with Microsoft. I think I saw something around Teams and other project management trackers that use AI for tracking participation. There's one section in there around taking notes during a Teams meeting. All of those things are already embedded in a lot of the platforms that we're already using. So just start small, right? Just what platform are you going to use? What is that one thing that you hope to have so that you can save time, right?
Mm.
Without taking additional hours to learn something new because I honestly, I may seem like it, I may seem tech savvy, but sometimes I just don't have enough time in the day to really teach myself or watch
Yeah.
a ton of YouTube videos on how to use a new tool. So
Yeah.
if I'm looking for something to just, quickly add or implement to just enhance my productivity, I'm going to do that first. But of course, I'm still open to learning. That's where I just take advantage of conferences because then I'm already in the thick of it. I'm ready to learn. I already put aside, some time in my schedule to really focus on what's in front of me. But that doesn't always happen during the school day, right? Especially for our teachers or our OST professionals, right? A lot of us have programming. Well, your program's running for about 3 hours. You have to make
Right.
sure you have things ready to go. And that time goes by so quick. So
Sure.
again, it's just starting small and think about what can be outsourced so that you can focus on those high quality teaching practices, those forming positive relationships with youth, right? You want to spend more time in front of youth instead of, your laptop for planning and pulling things together. So yeah, that's one strategy, starting small.
Start small.
Yeah, and that's something that we all can do, right? And this is something I also tell, my students when we're breaking down those huge tasks, we want to make it a little bit more manageable. Start small. What's the first thing that you need to address? So same thing applies here with integrating AI.
I mean, that's a great way not to be overwhelmed, but to really focus on empowerment is if you break it down in small steps and take it, they always say you eat an elephant one bite at a time. I always found that to be morbid, but I look at that with broccoli. I used to have to eat broccoli, and I'm not a big broccoli fan. I think it's like a danger plant, but if I do have to eat broccoli, the way I do it is one little piece at a time and just go through it. But it's a great strategy.
Absolutely. And it's simple, right? Something we all can do. And then I mentioned this before about those different platforms, right? So um, I would definitely prioritize the tools that would enhance cooperative learning with our youth.
Yeah.
We do a lot of group work in the classroom. The same thing applies, and it depends on your career, but I've been a part of a lot of group work as a professional. And so, if we are able to incorporate AI tools, it's helpful to do it in a way where we're supporting youth with working with one another in different groups. And this may tie into how you are planning your activities. I know a lot of educators are using universal designs for learning, those
Hmm.
different principles, and thinking about accommodations. So, what are some extensions, some AI extensions that you can help youth use to have like a smooth, almost smooth,
Okay.
small group experience, right? So this
Sure.
may be those grammar checks, right? I use Grammarly, but of course it's already embedded in a lot of the platforms that we already use.
Yeah.
But helping with summaries for some youth, right? Some youth may need a summary of an activity or some form of lesson so that they can contribute to the team. But also think about how we are supporting that critical thinking and collaboration with our youth, right? Is this a tool that can support youth in asking those necessary questions? And that's something that we can do without, opening up an AI tool. This may be something
Yeah.
that we may need to prompt youth
Yeah.
with before they engage so that they are aware, because this is something that we're seeing everywhere. And Shawn, you mentioned this before, right? We see AI, uh, they're creating things that sound like humans, right? I see it a lot
Hmm.
in social media. I'm hearing songs being created by AI as if they were an artist that we know of, right? That
Sure.
happens a lot.
It was
Um,
just in the news.
Right. Unfortunately, a lot of this can also be negative because
Right.
sometimes images are created, via AI. And so it's hard for someone who isn't familiar with it to see it as, oh, that's definitely AI generated. I shouldn't take it seriously. And the same thing happens with adults. It happened to me, it happened to myself because I'm starting to learn that I'm becoming my mother. I used to have conversations with my mom, like, you can't believe everything on Facebook, mom, like, please. Now my younger sister is having that same conversation with me, like, you can't believe everything on TikTok. Okay, please.
What?
Um,
What are you talking about?
please ask how. Ask how can this be possible?
Those dance moves, anybody can do that. I don't know what you're
Right?
talking
Are you sure? But yeah, so a lot of the tools that a lot of the things that they're using AI for can be dangerous, can be seen as dangerous, right? So if we are somehow incorporating this in the school day and helping students learn how to apply those critical thinking skills, then we're able to move forward. And again, this doesn't require us to open up a computer and use an AI tool. This can be something that we embed in our instruction and have a conversation around. Um, there's a lot there, but one more strategy is around measuring impact. And this is something that a lot of AI tools can already do, right? Providing that data for us to use in analytics. I think Kathleen shared that she used AI to summarize a focus group, right?
Right.
So the same thing can happen with our youth, right? We can use it to summarize any findings so that we can focus on how we are contributing in our team meetings with different department leads, or if we're participating in an IEP meeting, we're able to really focus on how we can best support that student. And then, of course, we have data because some educators that may not be their strong suit, and that's fine. That's where we can use AI to kind of support how we are tracking progress. And also it'll help us kind of tweak our own strategies, right? So that again, we're providing high quality teaching. So those are
I
my three.
appre I appreciate that because I hate note taking. Like I'm a horrible note taker. So even back in the day, I would record lectures and go back and listen, but now ChatGPT or a chatbot will do the summary for me. So I appreciate that. Now I know we only have a few more minutes. You have a couple of suggestions of some tools, and I'll post these up on the Padlet as well. But tell us a little bit about the tools on the screen.
Yeah, so I love free. So starting with Khan Academy, they have Khanmigo, which
Mhm.
is like a free AI teaching assistant and helps expand those topics with youth, and it's free. They definitely have a couple of features there, so definitely head over to Khan Academy. I remember using it a lot when I was helping my youth learn long division. I'm definitely sure there's been a lot of improvements since then. Google also have something for free, the Socratic by Google, right?
Okay.
And that is available as an app, but it also helps youth with homework,
Uh,
which can be a downer for a lot of OST programming.
sure.
But that's a great resource that you can use as well. And then, of course, AI for K12.org, they have a ton of resources. And this is actually a resource that has been shared multiple times throughout our talks with AI, right? But I really like that section where it keeps you up to date on what's coming out or any changes in curriculum that can be applied to what you're already doing in the classroom or your program. So those are just like the three I want to highlight. And again, I love free, so definitely check out Conmigo and Google Socratic.
Yeah, I'm a huge Conmigo fan. And what I like most about Conmigo is it doesn't give you the answer. It
Mhm.
actually makes you work for it. Like we use it a lot in math because, when did they change math? Like I don't know my daughter's math anymore, even though I can do math. I can't do her math, which is weird. But we've used Conmigo and in conjunction with me as the parent. Like it's me, Conmigo, and her all doing math, But
Together, I love the collaboration.
But Conmigo won't give us the answer. It'll be like, I don't know, Sean. What if you put x plus 2 equals 7? What would that be? And I'm like, just give me the answer, but it makes me work for it. So, you know, so we have like 2 minutes. So in 30 seconds or so, any advice for our participants today to literally just you know as they get started to not get that feeling of overwhelmingness, like, oh my gosh, there's so many things out there, I don't have any time in the day, to that empowerment. 30 seconds, what's your best piece of advice, Shanika?
Start with what you already know and then go on from there. And keep it simple, just like that.
Look at that, the kiss principle right there. Keep it simple. uh, thank you. Well, I just have to say, Shanika, thank you so much. First of all, for the work you're doing with youth across the country, like the states that are here. I mean, big shout out to all the states that work with you in the intact piece. Also, big shout out for your work with secondary programs. Thank you for working 24/7 in a boarding school and helping kids. Thank you for going to college, pushing things. And thank you for just sharing a little bit about you and your life and what you're doing. I think you're an amazing person. We have so much to learn from you in the future. So I
Thank you
cannot
so
thank you
much.
enough.
Thank you for having me.
So I will just end here with everybody. Thank you so much to everyone who attended. Love the folks. I see a lot of my great friends from Texas. Love you. I live in Texas, full disclosure. But there's plenty of people outside of Texas that are here. And thank you so much. There's a lot of our colleagues on the line. We appreciate you so much. for attending. As you delve into AI, please go onto the Padlet. You may, as Renee has said, you may need to copy it and put it in a browser rather than click on it. That will be fine. But please go to the Padlet, put your own thoughts. You're able to put your own resources up there. We're just 2-3 people with Andrew here. We're just 3 people, but you are, a whole force. And so if we all put one idea, that would instantly be 42 ideas right there. So please do that. Please see us at the Beyond School Hours conference. It's going to be so fun. We are going to be transitioning the show. AI is still going to be a part of the conference, but not necessarily a part of the show. We're going to transition to another hot topic. We're thinking, Andrew, can I give a preview about what we talked about? We're thinking about focusing on wellness. We're not sure, but we're thinking about going that direction because everybody who needs a little bit of wellness right now in this crazy world, right? So we're going to look at that. But thank you for having us. Andrew, I'm going to turn it back over to you to close this out.
Thank you so much, Shawn. Thank you, Shanika, as well. And thanks, everyone, for joining us. Please take a moment to complete our brief survey about the session. And I shared the link in the chat earlier on. We'd love to have your feedback and give us your thoughts about what you'd like the focus to be as well for the next show. We want to bear that in mind. I just want to remind you that a certificate of attendance will be sent within a week to all those who attended the session live. And we hope that you'll join us for our next session, the Beyond the Conference session. And you'll hear some about that via our social media platforms. But thank you and do have a wonderful day. And thanks, Shawn, and looking forward to seeing everyone here and others at BSH 2025.
In Orlando. All right. Thank you, everyone.
So give you a moment to grab the link once more for the chat, from the chat for the feedback form, and tell us about how the session went. And once again, enjoy the rest of your day.